Have you ever wondered why, sometimes, when you sit in silence, she still seems to sense you? You're not talking, not making any move, not trying to impress her, yet her eyes dart toward you. Her tone shifts. Her laughter grows a little louder, as if it needs to fill the space between you. This isn't random. This isn't just in your head. Women notice silence far more than men realize, and they respond to it with a strange mix of curiosity, discomfort, and even attraction. The reason is simple: silence makes her project onto you. It makes her wonder what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and most dangerously to her, what you might be hiding. And in that wondering, she reveals herself. Think about the times you've been in a group. Maybe you were with friends, maybe at a party, maybe in class or at work. You weren't the loudest, you weren't competing for attention, but every now and then, you'd feel it, her glance brushing over you, quick and instinctive. That's not an accident. A woman's social radar is tuned to read presence. When you're quiet, when you don't give her the easy read, she becomes more alert to you, because most men talk too much, explain too much, try too hard. Silence is rare. Silence is power. Silence forces her to feel something she can't quite control. Here's what happens inside her mind. Your silence leaves a gap, and nature hates a vacuum. She fills it with guesses. Does he like me? Is he bored? Is he above all this? That guessing triggers her to notice you, even if she doesn't want to. She adjusts her hair when you're near. She speaks louder in your direction. She finds small excuses to glance. And yet, she'll never admit that your lack of reaction is the reason her attention keeps circling back. This is why some men, without even knowing it, draw more eyes by doing less. It's not about pretending. It's about not rushing to ease the tension. Silence is uncomfortable, and whoever breaks it first is the one surrendering power. Now, let's get brutally honest. Most men destroy this advantage the moment they notice her attention. They start over-explaining. They rush to talk, to fill the air, to prove themselves. They give away the very thing that made her notice them in the first place, their restraint. And once you do that, she stops projecting. She stops wondering. You've turned yourself into just another man eager for approval. The game ends right there. Picture this: you're sitting at dinner with friends. Across the table, she's joking with everyone, laughing, performing. You're not ignoring, but you're calm. You don't add unnecessary noise. You let her chatter, let the others try to impress. Every few minutes, her eyes slide toward you. She catches herself, looks away quickly, but it happens again. That's your moment, not to jump in, not to throw out some flashy line, but to let her wonder why your energy feels different. If you talk, you do so with precision only when you mean it. That difference unsettles her in the best way, because she can read the others like an open book. You make her guess. Strategically, here's what you must understand. Silence isn't about being cold or withdrawn. It's about control. When you stop trying to be entertaining, when you stop explaining every thought, when you let quiet sit, she does the work. She notices you not because you demand attention, but because you withhold it. And withholding is more powerful than giving. But silence alone isn't enough. You must pair it with presence. Presence means your body language speaks for you. Shoulders back, head upright, movements deliberate, not rushed, not twitchy. You're there, grounded and unbothered. That's what makes silence magnetic instead of awkward. If you're slouched, staring at the floor, your silence looks weak. If you're steady, relaxed, slightly amused even, your silence radiates strength. Women don't just hear your words, they feel your energy. Silence amplifies whatever energy you carry. And this is where many men fail. They confuse silence with absence. They think staying quiet while shrinking into the background is the same thing. It's not. Silence must be intentional. It must feel like a choice, not a default. When you look like you're avoiding attention, she reads weakness. When you look like you could speak but simply don't need to, she reads depth. That's the razor's edge. That's why silence is dangerous to her, because it forces her to confront what she doesn't know about you. And uncertainty, in attraction, is the spark. The emotional trap for men is this. You fear being unnoticed. You fear she'll forget you if you don't make noise. That fear drives you to overcompensate. And in that overcompensation, you erase the very aura that could have pulled her in. The truth is, you're far more noticeable when you don't beg to be. A woman's eyes will scan the room for the man she can't read, not the one desperate to be seen. The more you speak just to be heard, the less she values what you say. The less you say, the more weight your words carry when you finally choose to use them. So the question becomes, are you willing to tolerate the discomfort of silence long enough to let her notice you? Can you resist the urge to explain yourself, to prove yourself, to perform? Because every time you break first, you lose the quiet power that was building, and every time you hold steady, you shift the dynamic. She notices, even if she pretends she doesn't. Have you ever felt her glance at you when you weren't saying a word? Did you break the silence too soon, or did you let her sit in it? Tell me what happened. What's harder for you, speaking up or holding back? Which mistake do you see yourself making most often? Be honest in the comments. There's something you need to understand. Silence is not neutral. To her, your silence is never blank space. It is a mirror, and she can't help but fill it with her own imagination. That's why she shifts in her seat when you don't respond right away. That's why she talks faster when you just raise an eyebrow instead of answering. That's why she sometimes gets irritated at you for being quiet, because your silence unsettles her balance. She can't read you. And people, especially women who are used to social dominance, hate not being able to read. Here's where the game gets sharp. Most women are experts at pulling men out of silence. They use teasing, questions, little challenges like, "Why are you so quiet?" or "You look like you're judging everyone." These aren't harmless lines. They're probes. They're attempts to drag you out into the open, to make you explain yourself, to get you talking so she can put you in a box and file you away. If you take the bait and start defending yourself, "Oh no, I'm not judging," or "Sorry, I'm just tired, you've lost," you've just handed her the upper hand because you broke your own stillness to reassure her. The stronger play smile faintly, hold her eye for half a beat, and then let the silence stretch. Or, if you respond, do it with a short, sharp answer that doesn't give her everything. Something like, "Maybe," or "You think so," delivered with calm indifference. That forces the tension back on her. She's left holding the weight of her own question. She'll either drop it or she'll push harder, and the harder she pushes, the more obvious it becomes that she's chasing your attention, not the other way around. That's when the dynamic flips, quietly but decisively. Let's ground this in a scenario. Imagine you're at a small gathering, sitting on the couch, and she suddenly turns to you. "Why aren't you saying anything? You don't like us." Now, most men would rush to fix the social moment. They'd lean forward, gesture, laugh, and say, "No, no, I like you guys. I'm just shy," or some nervous variation. But the man who understands silence doesn't panic. He just gives a slow smile and says, "I'm listening." Then he leans back again. That single phrase, delivered without defensiveness, reframes everything. Now she feels caught because she realizes she's the one trying to earn your reaction. The mistake men make here is subtle but deadly. They confuse engagement with investment. They think if they aren't constantly investing words, she'll lose interest. But interest doesn't fade because you speak less. It fades when your silence feels insecure instead of intentional. If you're shifting your eyes nervously, fidgeting with your hands, looking like you're dying to speak but holding back, she feels secondhand embarrassment. But if you're composed, relaxed, watching the room as if you own time itself, your silence pulls her toward you. That difference is everything. Another trap: she may use silence against you. Yes, women weaponize silence. 2. The cold shoulder. The fine when she's clearly not fine. The long pause after you say something she doesn't like. This is meant to provoke you into chasing, into proving, into breaking first. And most men do. They start asking, "What's wrong? Did I upset you? Please tell me." That chasing feeds her control. The strategy here is counterintuitive: mirror it back. If she withdraws, you withdraw further. If she pauses, you let the pause stand. You don't collapse into her silence. You own your own. That's when her tactic fails. Because instead of controlling you, she feels the weight of being ignored by someone unshaken. This doesn't mean being cold. It means being immune to manipulation. It means understanding that her silence is designed to test you, and your calm indifference is the only real answer. You don't need to fight it. You don't need to fix it. You need to let it break against you. The man who can remain unbothered while a woman tries to pull him into emotional reaction is the man she cannot dominate. Let me put it this way: silence is a battlefield. She throws words, gestures, looks, pauses, all to provoke you. If you collapse, she wins. If you hold, she shifts. Silence is how you find out who leads and who follows in the unspoken war of attraction. And here's the secret: most men don't want to hear women notice you most when they're the ones doing the talking. Because the more they talk, the more they reveal. Your silence creates a vacuum, and their need to fill it exposes everything: their insecurities, their desires, their real thoughts. The less you give, the more they expose. That's why the strongest men in the room often speak the least. Not because they're antisocial, but because they understand the power of watching, of waiting, of making others chase the comfort of filling silence. Have you ever had a woman accuse you of being too quiet? Did you feel the pressure to defend yourself? Or did you let her stew in her own curiosity? When she pulled the cold shoulder, did you collapse into explanation? Or did you let her silence fail? Be honest. How do you usually handle that moment? Drop your story in the comments. Here's where it gets even deeper. Silence is not just about what you say or don't say. It's about what your stillness communicates when everything else in the room is loud. In modern dating, most men overexpose themselves. They rush to explain intentions, to showcase achievements, to spill their thoughts in hopes of being seen as valuable. But the paradox is brutal: the more you reveal, the less she values what you reveal. It's supply and demand. If you're constantly supplying words, attention, reassurance, the demand for them drops. Silence flips the equation. Suddenly, your presence is scarce, your attention is selective, and scarcity always raises value. Imagine this in real time. You're texting her, and she sends a message that's clearly bait. Guess you're busy with someone else since you don't reply. Most men jump straight in long explanations, apologies, frantic attempts to prove loyalty. But the man who understands silence doesn't flinch. He doesn't rush to defend against accusations he never agreed to. He responds later, calmly, with nothing more than a short, indifferent, just been busy. That's it. No paragraphs, no justifications. That silence inside your message tells her you're not panicked, you're not owned by her insecurity, and you're not scrambling for her approval. and that unnerves her far more than any speech could. Silence also exposes her tells. Pay close attention the next time you stay quiet in a group or on a date. Watch how she reacts. Does she overcompensate by talking more? Does she tease you, trying to draw you out? Does she lean in closer, waiting for your reaction? These are signs she notices you more than you realize. If she truly didn't care, she wouldn't bother filling your silence. But when she reacts to it, when she can't leave your quiet alone, that's when you know your presence is under her skin. But here's the danger if you break your silence the wrong way. All that built-up power evaporates. Picture a man who sits confidently, letting her fill the air. She leans in, curious, unsettled, and then, at the wrong moment, he blurts out a needy joke or asks, "So, do you like me?" Just like that, the spell shatters. His silence was powerful because it created mystery. His sudden neediness destroys the mystery. The lesson: never use silence as a trick. Use it as a way of life. A man who can truly sit in silence without anxiety doesn't have to force mystery. He is the mystery. There's also a darker side to this. Some women, the ones who thrive on control, will resent your silence. They'll interpret it as arrogance, or they'll try to punish you for not giving them the validation they're used to. This is when the test comes. She may throw little jabs. You think you're too good to talk, or you're boring. These are not genuine critiques. These are attempts to get you rattled. If you react, defend, argue you're finished. If you smile, shrug, and let the jab fall flat, she feels the sting of her own failed attempt. And paradoxically, she becomes more intrigued. Because most men crumble under that pressure. The one who doesn't, he becomes unforgettable. Now, let's get tactical. If you're in a conversation and you sense yourself rambling, cut it short. End your sentences sooner than you feel comfortable. If she asks a loaded question, "So what are you looking for in a girl?" don't spill your whole dating philosophy. Give a sharp, restrained answer like, "I'll know it when I see it." That's it. That short silence afterward will do more for you than any speech ever could. If she leans in and digs deeper, let her. That means she's chasing your inner world instead of you throwing it at her feet. Silence also works in micro moments. A pause before you answer. A smirk instead of a reply. A glance that lingers but doesn't explain itself. These tiny silences hit harder than any words. They make her feel tension, and tension is the root of attraction. Without tension, there's no spark. Silence is how you create tension without even trying. Men who can't handle silence will never be truly attractive, because attraction isn't about being liked by everyone. It's about creating impact, and impact comes from contrast. In a world where most men overshare, overtalk, and over-explain, the man who holds back, who doesn't flinch in silence, stands out like fire in the dark. Ask yourself when you text, are you the one always rushing to respond? When you're in a group, do you force conversation because you can't bear a pause? When she challenges your quiet, do you fold into justification? Or can you hold the silence and let her reveal herself instead? Have you ever seen her lean closer when you didn't answer right away? Have you watched her tease you just to get a reaction? How did you respond? Did you hold the frame? Or did you share your story below? Silence, when mastered, doesn't just make her notice you, it makes her adjust herself around you. This is something few men ever experience, because most men are too busy adjusting themselves around her. Think about it in most interactions. You're the one trying to time your replies, trying to figure out what to say to keep her entertained, trying to fill every pause so she doesn't lose interest. But the man who doesn't play that game flips the entire dynamic. His silence forces her to be the one who adjusts. She shifts her tone, she leans in closer, she changes her rhythm just to bridge the gap he left open. That's how you know the power has shifted without a word spoken. There's an example that plays out again and again in real life, the bar or the cafe conversation. She's talking, smiling, throwing her best material out there. You nod occasionally, but you don't rush to match her energy. You're calm, grounded, present when she makes a playful jab. Wow, you're really quiet, aren't you? Instead of defending yourself, you just give her a slow smile and say, "I talk when it matters." Then silence. Watch what happens. She laughs awkwardly. She fiddles with her hair. She searches for her next move, because she's suddenly the one under pressure, not you. And that's where attraction sparks, not in your efforts, but in her effort to figure you out. The reason this works cuts deeper than just dating psychology. Women are biologically wired to test. Tests are how they measure strength, composure, leadership, and nothing reveals your strength more brutally than how you handle silence. Words are easy, anyone can talk. But can you hold stillness without collapsing? Can you endure the discomfort that makes most men break? That's what makes her notice you differently. Because your silence says what your words never could, that you're not performing for her approval. You're standing in your own frame. Now, let's talk about the internal cost to you when you don't understand this. Every time you rush to fill silence, every time you over-explain yourself, you chip away at your own presence. You teach her, without meaning to, that your approval seeking is stronger than your boundaries. You show her that her curiosity controls you, that her slight withdrawal of attention panics you into giving more. And once she knows this, it's game over, because from that moment, she will always know she has the lever to move you, and you'll feel it, that sinking feeling of being predictable, of being the one chasing, of being noticed only when you're working for it. That's the cost of never mastering silence. So what's the shift? It starts with one simple discipline you don't explain unless you want to. If she asks a question that feels like a test, you don't need to pass it by spilling your thoughts. You can shrug, you can smile, you can answer with a question back if she asks. So, what are you looking for in a relationship? You don't have to recite a script. You can say, "That depends who I'm talking to." Silence. That's it. You haven't given her control. You've made her work for clarity, and in that work, she invests in you. Another shift: you don't rush your timing. Most men answer immediately, afraid of being seen as slow or awkward. You, on the other hand, can pause. Let a beat hang before you reply. Look at her calmly, then speak. That pause alone makes your words land heavier, because it shows you're not afraid of the space between. And perhaps the hardest discipline of all, you don't collapse when she withdraws. This is where men lose themselves. She pulls back, goes quiet, acts cold, and he scrambles to fix it. Don't chase her energy. Let her silence stand and hold yours even longer. Because if she truly values you, she'll break it first. And if she doesn't, then her silence revealed the truth anyway. She was never really invested. Either way, you win. When you live this way, something shifts in your identity. You stop fearing whether women notice you, because you know they always do. Not because of what you say, but because of what you refuse to give away. Your silence becomes a filter. It separates the ones who crave control from the ones who crave depth. It draws in the women who want to earn your words, not the ones who want to manipulate them. So ask yourself, when was the last time you let silence work for you instead of against you? Do you remember a moment when she filled the gap you left open? Do you remember when you ruined it by rushing in too soon? And most importantly, can you start practicing this right now in your next conversation, even if it scares you? Tell me in the comments, do you fear silence with women? Or do you secretly know it's your strongest weapon? Which side of this have you lived more? There's a reason silence feels so dangerous to both you and her. It exposes reality. Words are smoke they can distract, cover, soften, even lie. But silence is a mirror. It forces both of you to face what's underneath. That's why women notice you most when you don't say a thing. They're not reacting to your clever lines, your jokes, or your explanations. They're reacting to what your silence makes them feel about themselves. And for many women, that's a feeling they can't escape, no matter how hard they try. Think about it. When you don't speak, she becomes hyper-aware of her own performance. Every laugh, every movement, every shift in tone suddenly feels louder in the air. She wonders if you're impressed, if you're judging, if you're even paying attention. Your silence forces her to turn her own gaze inward, and that's unsettling. Because most women live in the comfort of being constantly validated. When that validation doesn't come, it shakes them. And who caused that shake you without a single word? That's why silence makes her notice you even if she pretends it doesn't. But silence isn't just noticed, it's tested. And here's the trap, she'll often react to your silence with fire. She'll push harder, she'll raise her energy, she might flirt more aggressively, or she might criticize you to see if she can make you flinch. Don't mistake this for rejection. It's the opposite. It's her way of trying to break through your calm. And the moment you rise to it, the moment you match her energy in desperation, you've surrendered. The test isn't in what she says. The test is in whether you can remain centered when she tries to knock you off balance. This is why indifference is such a lethal weapon. Not coldness, not rudeness, indifference. When her teasing lands and you don't react. When her silence stretches and you don't collapse. When she hints, pushes, pulls, and you remain steady, amused, untouched. That indifference communicates something words never could, that your validation isn't for sale, that you can't be controlled with small games. And the woman who realizes she can't control you is the woman who starts respecting you differently. Let's anchor this in a story you've probably lived. She sends you a text late at night, so I guess you're ignoring me now. That's bait. Most men panic, grab their phone, and type a long defense. No, I wasn't ignoring you. I was just busy. I swear. They think they're saving the connection. But really, they're proving they're hooked on her approval. The man who understands silence. He doesn't explain. He doesn't apologize. Hours later, maybe the next day, he responds with, "You assume too much." Nothing else. The silence wrapped around that line does the work. She'll replay it in her head. She'll wonder why he didn't react like every other man. And that wondering is the seed of her obsession. But here's the truth, living this way requires discipline. It requires you to sit with your own discomfort. Because silence doesn't just make her feel something, it makes you feel exposed too. You'll feel the urge to break it, to talk, to explain, to prove. That urge is weakness, and every time you act on it, you kill the mystery that silence gave you. So you must train yourself to hold the line, to breathe through the pause, to remind yourself that silence doesn't mean failure, it means control. And here's the final piece, silence protects your self-worth. Because when you stop oversharing, when you stop defending, when you stop filling every gap, you stop giving pieces of yourself away cheaply. Your words become rare, your attention becomes earned, your presence becomes something she notices without you ever asking for it. That's the quiet power that makes women remember you long after you've left the room. Now I want you to be brutally honest. Have you ever destroyed your own presence by talking too much? Too soon? Have you ever watched her lose interest because you collapsed into explanation? Or have you ever held back just enough to make her chase your silence and realized how powerful that felt? Share your story below. Silence is the final frontier of control. If you can master it, you stop being like every other man who bends, scrambles, and talks his way into irrelevance. You become the man who is noticed without even trying. The reason is simple: women are drawn not to noise, but to presence. And presence is never loud. It is felt, not forced. When you stop over-explaining, you send a signal: I don't need to be understood by you to feel secure. That unnerves her, because most men beg to be understood. When you stop chasing her reactions, you send another signal: I'm not defined by your approval. That forces her to adjust, because most men twist themselves into knots to earn it. And when you can sit in silence, steady, indifferent, grounded, you're saying the one thing she can never ignore: I don't fear losing you. That's the truth that makes her notice you more than anything you could ever say. But this comes with clarity. You must accept not every woman will like it. Some will resent it. Some will call you arrogant, detached, or boring. That's fine, because silence is a filter. It screens out the ones who want to control you and leaves only the ones willing to lean in and earn you. And isn't that what you want? To stop performing for every pair of eyes and instead be noticed by the ones who truly see you. Silence gives you that. Here's the emotional truth: you've probably spent too much of your life over-explaining, justifying, talking in circles to prove yourself. And every time you did, you felt that quiet sting afterward, like you gave away too much. That sting was your intuition telling you that real strength isn't in spilling, but in holding. That every word you don't give away freely makes the ones you do give infinitely more valuable. That the man who can tolerate being misunderstood, unvalidated, even disliked, that's the man who commands respect without asking. So the next time you feel that urge, the urge to fill the silence, to text first, to explain, to prove stop, let the silence stand, let her wonder, let her work for clarity. Because the one who breaks the silence first is the one who loses power, and if it's her breaking it, you've already won. Remember this: women don't remember the man who tried the hardest. They remember the man they couldn't quite figure out. The man whose silence forced them to lean closer, to chase answers, to expose themselves. That can be you if you can resist the itch to give yourself away too soon. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect.